Alright guys, good evening. Alright, welcome. Now in today's video I want to show us how you can do your Welt pocket very fine. And then already this is my trouser. I have already cut out my trouser and I have this the back panel. I believe by now most of us must have known how to do this. The essence of this video is to show us how to cut the Welt pocket, how to do the Welt pocket, right? Now from the straight line, from the side seam, now you mark in 5.5 inches inwards for your darting, right? Now look at where the dart is done or was done, and then after you must have done your dart, now the next thing you will do is you cut a gum stay and paper gum and gum in this direction. This gum might be 3 inches width by length of 7 inches, depends on your choice, but then the gumming must be done at the edge where the dart ended, and this is where we start to do our Welt pocket. Now you cut the pocketing as well. The pocketing measurement is 7 by 10 on fold this way, right? But if you open it up this way, it becomes 7 by 20. Do you understand? Now you now start proceeding. So let's now fix it and see how it goes. Now you lay your lining on the machine this way, and then you take your trouser back piece. Now lap it to come 1.5 inch or 2 inches shorter than the main trouser, right? Very important. Then make sure that the pocketing is positioned at the center of your lining. Take your time to balance it properly, right? Then once you are done balancing it properly, now the next thing you will do now is you run a thread across. Now the pocket opening is 5 inches. Now I chose to use 5 inches. In some cases you might use 5.5 or 6, depends on your customer's hip measurements. Now after that, you now bring your placket, and then your placket must have been gummed with material gum or paper gum, depends on the choice. Now the measurement of the placket is 3 inches by 7 or 7.5, depends on your size as well. And then you fold. Now this folding you're going to fold is going to be half-inch folding, right? There was an initial folding of 1/2 inch on this edge, 1/2 inch here, right? Then after that folding, then you're going to divide it into 2 with your machine foot, and then you sew a straight line. Make sure you start from the 5.5 inches mark, stitch properly, right? Stitch properly. Then once you have stitched properly, and then you sew, your hands must be straight as well. Now make sure that your point of your pocket placket will lap at the end of the dart. Then you sew the midpoint of that. Then once you have taken your time to sew the midpoint of that, now the next thing you will do is to remove the thread as well, and then you can now proceed with the other placket. Then you cut the thread off this way as shown, and then you can just trim it out a bit. Now this trimming is to enable you have a smooth edge there, right? Then after which you bring the other placket. The other placket wasn't folded. It wasn't folded. There will be no need to fold. Then you place it to lap a bit under. Place it to lap a bit under the initial placket, right? It must lap a bit under the initial placket, and then you sew. Now this sewing will start from the tip of the first lapping. It will start from this point. Now this is going to give you a perfect turning or turnover when you slit it properly. You sew from there. Make sure you take your time to stitch, right? You stitch from there. Make sure it's lapping at the edge of the first flap, that's the one here, right? Then it's kind of giving you a measurement gauge you will use to have a perfect finishing. Then make sure that the 2 threading stop at the same positions, both from the beginning and to the end. Cut your threads as well, and then you take your time to arrange it properly. Cut your threads as well this way, and then you fold. You make sure everything is properly taken care of underneath, right? This is how it is. As you can see, this is how it is, right? Then you open it up that way, then fold it into 2 equal parts this way, and then you notch the midpoint. Now that notching is going to help you put your scissors inwards that way. Raise the plackets up. You are going to cut now from the main trouser and the lining underneath, right? Cut from that same point, notch it, cut it straight up. Don't get to the end. Stop like 1/2 inch away from the end point that way, and then give it a V notch. As you can see how my hand just shifted in a V shape form, right? Then get to the end of that point. You can see how I stopped. Then also notch the other side as well, and then get to the end of that same position as well. As you can see how it's being properly controlled. Now you will get a V notch in there, a V cut in there. Also do the same thing on the other side. Make sure the underneath one is properly lapped, right? And then open it up that way, and then you put your scissors inside that way. You notch, then approaching 1 inch or 1.5 inch away from the end of the threading, you give it a V notching. It goes in that form. As you can see, it goes in that form, right? And then end at exact position of your threading this way. Now make sure you take your time to do this. End at this exact position, don't surpass the threading. Then after you must have done that, the next thing you will do now is to start folding the flap, the placket, right? So you fold the placket in this form, and then it comes out to this point. Then you're going to thread there again. Now this threading is to give it a firm grip this way, right? So thread there again, and then cut your threads as well. Cut your threads as well. Just follow the process, you achieve a perfect result. You see how the thread came out, right? On the flap piece, on the flap piece, and then you tuck it out that way. You tuck it out that way. Take your time to do this. Then it will come out in this form, right? So bring it out properly this way, and then you turn it to the other front. So this is the result of what we have achieved. Then you now take your time to tuck in the edges properly. Now these edges must be tucked in properly, and make sure you use your scissors or your screwdriver. You take your scissors or your screwdriver and tuck in the edges properly this way, right? Then once it's been tucked in, raise the main trouser up, raise the lining up, that tongue-like effect, bring it up properly, and then you stitch. And then you stitch. Now this stitching is going to give it a lapping effect at that edge. You must have made sure that edge has been properly taken care of. Then you stitch at that point. You are stitching only the tongue-like effect and the flap. Raise the lining and the trouser up. Then you cut your threads as well. After doing this now, the next thing you will do now, you repeat the same thing on the other side. Tuck in the tongue effects inside. Tuck in the tongue effects inside this way. Tuck it in properly, right? And then you stitch as well. So this is how you are going to achieve the simplest, or one of the simplest methods of wet pocket creating or making, right? So I hope this video will go a long way to help you. Please watch this video and master it properly before you start practicing. Use a rough and practice this before you do it on a customer's outfit. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys must have learned a lot. And don't forget that I still have an online Telegram paid classes going on. You can still join me. Send a DM to the number on Telegram 0803 895 9186. Now for you to get the course out form, to get the course outline, and then get the payment details. I hope this video will go a long way to help us practice how to do a wet pocket. And then you now fling it the other way around. Then make sure the trouser, the lining is getting 1 inch above the material. Now you measure the depth you want. Now the depth is naturally your choice. It might be 7.5 or 8. Then after you must have gotten your depth, you notch accordingly, notch the both ends accordingly, and then you fling it out this way, and then turn it the other way around this way. You might still need to top stitch this flap on top of the lining, right? So you top stitch the flap on top of the lining that way. Now make sure you must have removed the trouser, then you top stitch the flap on top of the lining that way, right? Then once you have done that, they can now cut off the excess flaps protruding. If your flap and your lining did not match, there's no problem. Then you now end up closing the pocketing the way it should. Alright guys, so I hope this video will go a long way to help us do similar stuffs and achieve a better result. Don't forget, proper practice makes perfect. Keep on practicing, don't give up, right? I wish you well in all your endeavors in your sewing career. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, this is Mr. Redefined.